I had a very strange dream in which it seemed to me that I had become a slime, although I don't think so, because this slime looked very self-indulgent. But it was already time to get up, because the time on the clock was 7:00, the alarm went off. Our hero began to reflect on his dream, thinking to himself, "Have I really turned into a beautiful girl? What a strange dream it was. Was it my wish? Although I'm not that very dissatisfied with my current situation." After these words, he returned to his realities and remembered what was happening in his life, so he took his words back. Just like in a dream, then he would certainly have been better. More recently, his friend decided to introduce his future wife to him, but he really did not like it because he was not at all lucky with this. This friend's name was Tamura and his solitary Yoshi-san's daughter-in-law. Our main character didn't like it at all in his heart, but he didn't show it and behave decently. They met during their acquaintance. It turned out that the main character's name is Minami Satoru. Satoru believed that this bastard Tamura, as he said, he decided to arrange this whole performance on purpose right in front of the one who is unlucky in love. Satoru thought to himself, "Here's a freak. He won the heart of the Madonna of our company and rejoices, you bastard." The couple in love said that they just needed to discuss some moments about the upcoming wedding, asking for forgiveness for worrying. Tamura decides to treat Satoru as compensation for his rude request. Then Satoru thinks that Tamura is still a nice guy. Because of this, such a guy is hard to hate. There's nothing to be done. He decides to come to terms with this and only sincerely wish them happiness when suddenly, knocking down all Satoru's thoughts, an unfamiliar man runs in their direction, namely in the direction of Tamura. This stranger threateningly shouted to everyone to run out of his way, and in his hands was a kitchen knife. Then Satoru realized what could happen now, so he didn't even think about immediately throwing Tamura aside. Then, a disaster happened. After what happened, Satoru didn't even understand what happened to him, but then he was already lying on the ground and did not could move. Tamura, having risen, saw what had happened and immediately ran towards the Satoru. He was in a panic, could not understand what he should do now. With tears in his eyes, he asked not to leave him. Satoru couldn't utter a word, but he thought to himself, why is it getting so cold? A person will die if he loses a lot of blood. That's too bad. Then he heard a voice that was extremely unnatural, as if it was not Tamura who spoke, but a computer. The voice said, "Accepted. Generation of a body that does not require blood." He remembered his computer, and as he said his last wish in the movies, his wish was, "Please, take care of my computer. Throw it in the bath and cause a short circuit. Make sure you destroy all the data." His wish was so bluntly expressed that Tamura was even scared at first when he heard it, but after he smirked because it was so similar to Satoru, Tamura decided to confess to Satoru that on that day he decided only to show off solitary in front of him, but he said that he already knew this and already forgave him for it. So he needs to make every effort to make her happy, and also asked him to take care of his computer. After these words, he felt him with something of non-viscosity. He thought that the transfer to another world had already begun, thought about how he lived his life, but thought that he lived his life in such a way that there was not even much to tell about it. He graduated from college, then got a job in a construction company for the construction of high-rise buildings, and at the time of what was happening was a 37-year-old bachelor. Since his brother of the same age captured all the parental attention, he could easily become an unfettered bachelor. And because of this, at 37 years old, he was a virgin. So he decided to apologize to his baby, who was downstairs. He said that if there is an afterlife, then he will definitely give free rein to his predatory instincts and feed him to his full. Although saying this, he thought it was completely impossible. The moment he was saying that, that strange voice reappeared that was already saying, "Request accepted. Successfully acquired the predator skill. Will become a magician after 30 years, but I, who is almost 40, will probably become a sage, right?" After these words, a strange voice said that the unique skill, Sage, was successfully acquired. Of course, our Satoru did not stop there and continued to think. If I put in more effort, even becoming a great sage won't be just a dream anymore, right? Oh, how awesome that sounds. Suddenly, a voice was heard again saying that the unique skill, Sage, was upgraded. The unique skill, Sage, was developed into the unique skill, Great Sage. To himself, what the hell this just hey peaky NED. What another unique skill, Great Sage, he is not unique. This is not even fun and I at all. Damn, how rude, really. This is what is called death. Surprisingly not as lonely as I thought. Suddenly the Satoru was in some dark place. He did not understand where he was, did not understand what happened to him. But he remembered that he received a small scratch with a knife when protecting Tamura. He thought that he had really been saved. But if so, is this a hospital bed? But Sekiru did not feel anything, he didn't see or hear anything. I had only a small scratch from a knife. My arms and legs should be fine. Really, just don't tell me that the scratches hurt my nerves and now I'm paralyzed. Hey. This is not a joke at all. But something suddenly happened, and he thought that he was moving, feeling something below his stomach. It looked like it was grass, but he did not feel any smell. There was no sight, no hearing, no smell, only touch. But what about taste? Suddenly dissolved. Does it dissolve after absorption? He thought when suddenly it dawned on him that he was no longer a person. Frightened in a panic, he decides to immediately check his appearance, but no matter how hard he tries to spin around, nothing changed. He tried to imagine how he looks now, and he managed to draw only a small drop. He thought, yeah, what the hell is going on? What are these jokes? Who can believe in something like that? But plant disintegration and absorption, the streamlined shape of my body and that feeling of resilience. Since Satoru had come to terms with the fact that he was reborn into a slime, he had been in some unknown place where some kind of bulks were constantly coming from. He had already managed to get used to his new body and get used to it, and especially to its elasticity. He felt absolutely nothing, neither heat nor cold. Even when he stumbled upon stones, Satoru could recover very quickly. He did not need to sleep or eat. But he had only one problem: he was very lonely. Unfortunately, he didn't know how to solve the problem, so he started eating grass to make his time pass faster. By the way, Satoru still didn't defecate, so he didn't even know where all the grass he eats went. Voice explaining that all the grass that he ate is stored in a stomach bag, which was obtained due to the unique skill, Predator. He was shocked that someone really answered him. The system, as we will call this strange voice, answered him that at the moment his stomach sac is using less than 1% of the capacity. He asked who it was, to which he again received the answer, and it was the effect of the unique skill, Great Sage. Since the ability of the skill has adapted, quick answers are possible. Satoru, realizing that he could find out everything now, began to ask about everything he could think. He asked what kind of skills these are, to which he received the answer that with the development recognized by the world, sometimes he can acquire different skills. He did not understand everything, but it seemed to him that everything that happened to him was normal for this world, and he realized that Great Sage and Predator are his skills. At that moment, he sank into carefree joy. Even though it was a skill, he still doesn't have anyone else to hang out with now, so he got too carried away with it. And as a result, a lot of stupid questions were asked. He interacted with the skill, asked him about all sorts of things. There was a question about how painful death by suffocation was, because he thought he was in an underground lake because he felt like in water. But the system told him that the body of the mucus does not require oxygen. Indeed, he did not feel any pain. At that moment, the cells of his brain, body of mucus, came up with an ingenious strategy. Absorb a large amount of water and move, releasing a jet from yourself. In the imagination, you should have floated out of the water like that. Having tried to do this, he acquired a new skill, namely, hydraulic traction. He suddenly heard a voice. It was not the voice of the system. Hearing it, he almost wet himself with fear. He did not understand who it could be, if not the system. He was starting to get nervous because this was his first conversation since he was reborn as a slime. He thought that he should be friendly then, but he didn't even know how to answer him. It didn't look like he was able to make any sounds at all. Then this unfamiliar voice said that he could just answer, but then it annoyed him, and without thinking he said, "Don't be so inattentive, bald head." This made the stranger very angry, so much so that he had a thirst to destroy the slime. Realizing that he had been heard, he immediately apologized and said that he did not expect to be able to speak with anyone other than the system, of course. Their mode of communication turned out to be telepathy, but at that moment he was in a state in which he could not see anything. Therefore, he asked who he was. He told him that it's probably difficult to have a conversation if you don't see who you are talking to, so he decided to help him see him. He didn't understand how he was going to do it, but he also warned him not to be scared as soon as he saw his. The stranger told him that there is something called magical perception. It allows you to perceive the environment with the help of magical essence. Explanation: the world where Satoru currently resides is covered in magical essence. For example, a slime body can move because it absorbs magical essence. If you were able to perceive the flow of magical essence outside of your body, you will gain this skill. You will be in the state of seeing and hearing. Satoru found this difficult, but he decided to try it anyway. His first sensation was that something seemed to be floating. He has successfully acquired the magical perception skill. Satoru was even surprised that he was able to acquire this skill so easily. The system advised him, in order to perceive a larger amount of information, it is recommended to use it simultaneously with the Great Sage skill, and then ask if the newly acquired skill should be activated, to which Satoru, of course, agreed. Satoru was surprised by the place where he was. He was ecstatic and started jumping about being able to see everything again. So he decided to thank the stranger for this, and the stranger asked him to let him introduce himself again. 4 dragons born of this world. Satoru was terrified to see him. In his mind he thought, "Holy Mother of God, isn't this a dragon?" But Veldora said, "Hey, didn't I tell you not to be scared? So you are a reincarnated person from another world." Despite Veldora's formidable appearance, he unexpectedly turned out to be a friendly and chatty dragon. Veldora told him that this kind of reincarnation, as it is extremely rare for him, sometimes people of this world are reborn, and occasionally in this world visitors from other dimensions come in. But in my memory, there was no case when someone from another world was reborn here. Satoru asked, "So there are other people from other worlds as well?" To which Veldora replied, "Yes. It seems that these people get the abilities they wish for." Then Satoru thought, "So that's why my skills are this is the great sage and predator," after he said to Veldora, "Perhaps there are Japanese here. I should try to meet them." Veldora answered him, "Well, if so, then you can go." Having said this, Satoru immediately felt loneliness from Veldora and asked, "Is Veldora-san, you are not able to leave here?" To which he received the answer that he had lost this opportunity after being sealed 3 stallet back by one hero. All this time he was simply dying of boredom. But really were heroes in this world. The hero who sealed Veldora was really strong despite the appearance of a weak girl. She sealed me with her unique skills, Absolute Break and Eternal Dungeon. Satoru asked Veldora if he lost because he was fascinated by the girl's beauty, and Veldora began to sob bitterly, saying, How is this possible?" But it seems that Veldora looks very happy talking about the defeat. He began to describe the one who defeated him. She was short and very slender. Snow-white skin, silvery black hair, pulled back in a ponytail, small apple-red lips. This fellow probably likes people. Even though he looks really scary, Satoru no longer felt scared. And also because they were both lonely. Then Satoru suggested that Veldora become friends. Veldora was shocked that the slime actually wanted to befriend an assault dragon. But Satoru thought that he didn't want it, so he said, "Well, if you don't want to, then okay." Veldora then shouted, "Fool. Did I say I'm against? Well, if you want it that badly, I'll think about it." Satoru states, "I'll put it this way, I'll make friends with you no matter what, and if not, then leave and never come back." Turning around and frightening Veldora, he immediately stopped him and said, "If so, then nothing can be done. I will become your friend." Satoru commented on his care. Satoru thought that he could somehow remove the seal from Veldora, so he told him, "So what are we going to do with this seal? Since it's obvious that I need to save my friend, right?" So Satoru decided to ask the system, "How can we get rid of the Veldora seal?" But receive an explanation in response. It's impossible. The Eternal Dungeon cannot be destroyed by physical attacks. That's it, as expected of a hero ability. A completely different level, the system continued listing possible ways to break the seal. Veldora was jealous of Satoru, so he told him, "Hey, don't talk only with your skill." Satoru said, "It seems that the seal can be broken by analyzing the Eternal Dungeon both outside and inside." But since Vernoba's abilities were sealed, he couldn't use them. Satoru only needed Vernoba to give him information in order to the Great Sage was able to analyze it. It may take a long time, but doesn't Veldora want to leave this place and meet people from his world? Satoru offered something to Veldora, namely, "Veldora, would you like to go inside my bag's stomach?" After hearing this, Veldora laughed very loudly and for a long time, saying that it was very interesting and agreed with the proposal. Satoru asked, Hey, why are you so easy to trust me?" To which he received the answer, "Of course, rather than shrink here out of boredom, I'd rather break the Eternal Dungeon together with you." Then Satoru said that he was now using the Predator skill to absorb him. But he said, Before that, let me give you a name. You also come up with a name for both of us. Let's leave the same symbol on our souls." Satoru suggested a name for him, Tempest. Veldora really liked it, so much so that he stood up on his hind legs and said, "From now I am via Ryudora Storm, and I name you Rimuru. You can use Rimuru Storm instead of your old name." Satoru then decided to transgress and told Veldora to try to quickly get out of the Eternal Dungeon and used his unique skill Predator. After using the skill, he began to analyze the unique skill, Eternal Dungeon. On the very day that all this happened, the world was completely shocked, because the life energy of Storm Dragon Veldora, a natural disaster rank monster, has disappeared. The slime that caused this did not pay attention to this furor at all. Satoru, as a result of research, received the skill of the Water Blade with which he can defend himself from monsters while traveling. There has been no response from Veldora yet. Ever since that talker fell silent, I've been feeling a little lonely. Although I knew that he had not really disappeared, and now it was time for them to get out of there. For their next meeting, Satoru decided to prepare some interesting stories for the Veldora to tell him. Speaking of the name Rimuru, I think I heard it in my dream from a past life. Well, it doesn't matter anymore. In search of a way out, Satoru found the ore, which he also ate, and she went to the Veldora in the stomach bag. After he found the door, but did not know how to open this door which blocked his way, he thought whether to use the water blade or cut it into pieces, or even use the predator and eat it. But he did not know if he could actually eat something like that. While he was thinking about this, the door was abruptly opened by strangers. It looked like they had come to check on the Veldora that was in the satyr's stomach. Even the keyhole of this door is rusted, because no one has used it for more than 300 years. The company girl who entered through this door said, "It seems that the guild master was quite concerned to send us to check the Sela cave, but she was told not to worry about the rumors that there is a dragon here. It's probably just a huge lizard." Satoru contemplated whether he should try to make contact with them, but immediately realized that he would not be able to communicate with them using telepathy, as with the Veldora, so if he was not careful, they could destroy him, deciding that he was also a monster. It's a pity, but now the Satoru should not stick out to appear in front of other people. He should at least be able to speak. Satoru sat quietly and heard one of the trio say to get the others closer because it would be easier for him to use the concealment technique, but since Satoru didn't know what it was, he thought it was a skill. He watched them and saw what they were. He thought to himself, "These shameless ones are really free to peep on others. It looks like I should befriend them in the future." First friend of the new world. When will they meet again? More than 10 days ago. The events take place in the Jura Forest, a small border country, the Kingdom of Burmond. We are talking about the disappearance of the storm dragon Veldora, the guild master. I called you here for a reason. According to our guesses, from now on the demons will become more active, said the minister of the Kingdom of Burmond, Baron Belliord. The Baron continued, "I want to hear from you what countermeasures the guild has prepared." Free Union leader Fitz responded, "Nothing much. Coming up with countermeasures is the job of the country. We are non-volunteers, Baron." Belliord released the maids and they left, then he continued talking with Fitz. This incident will be followed by more than an increase in demon activity. The Eastern Empire, that power that suppressed them, has disappeared. And now there's nothing that can stop their invasion. Frontiers, the countries near the Jura forests, will be conquered at the same time. Fitz replied, "I understand. After all, we are childhood friends. I'm investigating this for personal reasons." The Baron patted him, but he said that everything was fine because he too was worried about the disappearance of the Veldora. He cannot disappear somewhere without any reason. Something serious must have happened in the cave. In front of the culprit of all this, Sakura, a dragon suddenly jumped out and growled, frightening Satoru, but if you look closely, he was not so scared. He thought that in comparison with the Veldora, this little animal seemed much nicer. Satoru started. He worked out his unique technique for 1 week, and I decided to use it right at that moment. "Satoru, the water blade is more powerful than I thought." But that comrade's breath also had a frightening power. The system prompted Satoru to use the predator's skill on the storm serpent. He was surprised that the system even understands the types of demons, then asked what this absorption would give him. Then he received the answer that after absorbing the target's skills can be adopted through analysis. Then he absorbed it without thinking and got 2 new skills, namely heat perception and poisonous breath. It is also possible to mimic the analyzed target. He tried it and turned into this dragon, and noticed the bats which he decided to eat, so he used the new skill poison breath, then decided that he would not resort to this skill for now and began to eat his prey. The system said that he acquired new skills, namely bloodsucker and ultrasonic waves. Laughing, Satoru asked at the system, "Ho ho ho, great sage, do you know why I decided to eat a bat?" To which he received the answer, "I believe that it was possible to imitate the voice." But Satoru did not even know this. Then he received an explanation. "I think the vocal cords producing ultrasonic waves will give me the ability to speak." It was much more difficult than Satoru thought, but in this way he practiced the pronunciation of words, even practicing during sleep time, although he did not need to sleep. Of course, the demons continued to attack him, but with the help of his pumped skill, Water Blade, all the demons were defeated. He also absorbed them and acquired the skills. Acquired the skill Sticky Thread and Steel Thread. He continuously became stronger by learning the skills. Then on the 3rd day, he defeated quite a few demons along the way. But battles were not to be taken lightly, but in one-on-one skirmishes, most demons were no problem for him. Finally, it was time for Satoru to emerge from the cave and begin his journey. The cave he was in the forest. After leaving the cave, he walked, practiced his skills, practiced pronunciation by walking, and lived his life peacefully. as if there were no demons in the cave, when suddenly he noticed wolves that abruptly ran away in the opposite direction from him. He thought that they were afraid of him, but it wasn't there. Behind him stood a bunch of goblins. There were about 30 of them, but Satoru wasn't even surprised if there were dragons and slime in that cave. Then he thought that they were going to attack him, but looking at them, he saw their skinny bodies and rusty weapons, so he thought that their attacks could not even harm him. But he noticed what they were saying and noticed that they understood them. The system told him that when using the magical perception technique, sound waves are meaningfully transformed into understandable sentences. Then he decided to speak and introduced himself to them, which greatly shocked them. They lay down on the ground and shouted in fright, "Strongest, we already recognize your power. Please tone down your voice." "Ah," were my thoughts that loud, thought Satoru. So he apologized that he still hadn't learned how to use his voice in his new body. The goblins kneeling in front of Satoru shouted together, "You don't have to apologize to us." Satoru said, "Then, do you need anything from me?" "I'm not planning on doing anything here." "Okay." The head of the goblins told him that if so, the goblin village was right ahead. The goblins immediately sensed a strong demonic aura, so they immediately went to the place where this aura was coming from to check. Satoru did not understand what they were talking about, so he thought about how strong and demonic aura they were talking about. Then he said that he did not feel anything with his magical perception skill. The goblins thought he was joking and then laughed. The system, upon hearing this, replied to Satoru. The system replied that there were no demons with a greater demonic essence within a radius of 100 meters than a being named Rimuru Tempest. Satoru overheard what they were saying. They said that they are not fools. Except for the slime, there is no one to emit such a strong demonic aura. But Satoru did not understand what kind of demonic aura he was talking about because he did not know that he had once emitted something like this. Then he asked the system to show him a third-person view, and then he understood what they were all talking about. The Satoru emitted an ominous aura that could be felt even from a very far distance. Satoru realized what they saw and apologized because he was ashamed. Then he even understood why the wolves ran away from him. Satoru then tried to draw in this ominous aura, thereby hiding it, but the goblins had already managed to see all the details of this evil aura. After removing that demonic aura, for which the goblins thanked him because that demonic aura was quite terrifying, Satoru pretended to say that if he hadn't released it, no one would have come out to meet him now. After that, the Satoru happily talked to the goblins and decided to visit their village with an invitation. It looked like they would let Satoru rest there. Satoru very quickly got used to them and began to fully understand their speech. It's probably because he learned to hear with magical perception. They came to the goblin village. The village elder came and said, "I'm sorry, sir, but we don't have many supplies to serve you properly." But Satoru didn't really care, so he told him not to worry about it. Then Satoru asked, "Probably so, how did you invite me here? Then you must want something from me, right?" After this question, they fell down and on their knees and began to worship him. The elder wanted to ask him for a request and said that he had heard about his hidden power from his son. Satoru said that he would decide after he heard his request. Then the elder began his story. The elder says, "About a month ago, the dragon god who suddenly left us without any explanation. Therefore, the demons who want to expand their possessions turned their attention to this place. There were even such powerful demons as fanged wolves among them. Even 10 of them could barely cope with one such creature, and there was a whole flock of them. If you estimate, about 100 heads. This information was obtained by our Liguru at the cost of his life, returning from a battle with a tribe of fanged warriors. Liguru was the older brother of the elder, who was nicknamed Smarter Than the Magian and was the strongest warrior in our village. We are only alive now because the older brother was here. Liguru is no longer with us, but he is my son. I am proud of him, even if only death is prepared for the weak. We want to live even if it's just a matter of pride in our son." After hearing what Satoru wanted to clarify something, he asked the elder what he would get for helping their village. In fact, it's okay to help just on a whim. Yano is necessary to introduce some changes in their value system. Thinking about it, he heard their answer. The answer was, "Strongest. We will completely go over to your favor." They said this while looking at Satoru with plaintive eyes. How his past life went, then he thought that he even had nothing to say. He simply could not refuse when someone begged him. Suddenly, they heard the howl of a wolf, which was very close in sound. It was the howl of a wolf from the Fang tribe. They all started to panic. They decided that they finally decided to attack them. It was very bad. Some screamed that they would all be eaten. They all wanted to run away together, but did not know where to go. Those who had already been hurt, but namely women and children. They are all there. The elder tried to calm down, but Satoru interrupted him. He said, "There is no need to be afraid. Soon they will receive theirs. Your request? I, Rimuru's storm, will protect you like once a Veldora. From what they heard, they could not help but rejoice, so they fell on their knees and bowing to Satyr, they asked him to grant them his protection. From that day on, they became loyal subjects of Satyr. What fate awaited the union of slime and goblins? Now the most ordinary battle begins. Slime against a tribe of fanged wolves. All wounded during the battle with fanged wolves were gathered in one room. Some of them will be restored for a long time. If anything, Rimuru, this is a nickname for Satoru. A light bulb went off in Rimuru's head, after which he blurred, because of which he greatly frightened the elder. But he blurred not just so, and in order to heal the wounds, the elder, noticing that the wounds of the wounded man began to heal, surprised him very much. But as it turned out, everything was not so simple. You might be wondering how Satoru cured him. In fact, he just spit out a healing potion from himself. In fact, he accidentally found some useful material. It happened when he could neither see nor hear. He continued to eat grass to pass the time. The system told the Satoru that those herbs were called hypocrite. By mixing herbal juice with magical essence, you can create a healing potion. How to say, Satoru just imagined doing it inside his body, and he managed to do it. Because of this, he had a lot of potions, and their effect, apparently, was too strong. Satoru ordered them to build a fence, and by that time they had already finished building it. It was not that strong, but they didn't have much time, so Satoru used the skill, sticky thread, with which he strengthened the fence. The goblins asked what the threads were, then he replied that these threads were the skill of an ordinary spider from the cave, which he took possession of. Now that everything was built, the preparations for battle were complete. Tonight we have to beat all the goblins in the village with it. What a nice moonlight tonight. As a first step towards conquering the great forest of Jura, they stood on the defensive and began to wait for their enemies. Meanwhile, the wolves ran in their direction, and their plan came into action. One of the goblins was in a tree and looked out for the area so as not to miss the enemies. He called out with a cry, "They're coming! They're here!" It was a tribe of fanged wolves. Suddenly, the wolves noticed the slime, and one of the wolves stopped the whole pack and said, "Father, this is the one we encountered that time." Pointing to the slime, they realized that he was the demon who, like he said, gives off a strange demonic aura. What kind of nonsense? Wasn't he just an ordinary slime? Satoru stated, "Listen, I'll only say this once. If you stop right now, I'll spare you. I suggest you retreat immediately." The wolves continued to run towards the goblin village. One of the wolves said he saw a similar fence in the human villages. Satoru, in the opinion of the wolves, behaved too arrogantly, although he was only a slime. The wolves decided to continue the attack without heeding Satoru's advice, so the leader said, "Take them." As the wolves thought, this flimsy wooden fence is nothing against our claws and teeth. Suddenly, the unexpected happened. The wolves caught on the threads set by Satoru. The wolves did not understand what happened to them. And the goblins figured out that these threads were installed not only for strengthening. This was the second thread, called Steel Thread. There is an enthusiastic battle in this area of the passage, in the zone of which it is difficult to move forward, but at the same time dodge the arrows and avoid the steel thread. Even if they can get this far, the wolves fell into despair. They thought it would be impossible because they are mighty fanged vodkas, so that they would succumb to inferior creatures like slugs and goblins. I will not accept this. The leader of the wolves was not ready to put up with the fact that they began to lose, so he rushed forward immediately to Satyr, who was standing at the ready. The son tried to stop him, but could not. The leader of the wolves believed that everything that happened was just miserable tricks. The traps were marked with the blood of his comrades, so he hoped he could easily slice them apart with his claws and fangs. Counting on all this, he abruptly rushed forward and jumped towards Satoru, shouting, "Don't be so self-confident, you're just a slime. I'll tear you to shreds." All the goblins were afraid for Satoru, but he was ready for this and prepared several traps for him. The leader of the wolves was caught in a sticky thread and could not move. Satoru used his skill called Water Blade, with which he defeated their leader. The son could not do anything, and just watched his father lose. Satoru shouted to them, "Well, listen, fanged wolves. Your leader has already left you. Leave or meet your end here. It's up to you." Satoru thought sharply, Damn, I was wrong. It would have been better to let them run away, and I accidentally gave them a choice. What if they choose to fight until they lose their pulse? What if they attack and overwhelm us with numbers? But it looked like they couldn't make a decision. It seems that due to the loss of their leader, so Satoru decided to push them a little to choose. He used his unique skill, Predator, with which he analyzed the leader Volkov and turned into him. While in the body of their leader, he said, "Cool, can't be helped. I'll let you escape this time. I won't force you to obey me, and I'll just let you leave this place. Quickly leave. When suddenly Satoru received an unexpected answer, the wolves said that they would all obey him. Well, first you need to give out orders to everyone and start organizing the village. This is how this motley company turned out. At the moment when he wanted to give orders, he asked the head of the goblin village what his name was, to which he received in response that demons usually do not have names, so even without they can refer to each other. So Satoru stated that he would now give everyone names. After saying Satoru, they were filled with delight. He asked everyone to stand in a row, and was the first to receive the name of the village head, who was now called Ligurudo, after their strongest warrior in the village. The rest also received different names: Gobuta, Gobuchi, Gotsu, Gobute, Gobuto, and so on. Satoru's names were certainly not original, but he wanted to give out names to everyone as soon as possible. He proceeded to name all the goblins, as well as the wolves, because he couldn't ruin their joy by stopping halfway through the line. The son of the leader of the wolves was nicknamed Ranga. Satoru began to feel very tired. Satoru thought to himself, "Damn, I don't know what's happening to me. Hello, great sage, what's wrong?" The system replied to him that in order to accumulate enough magic power, there was a switch to a low power mode. It was bad because his magical perception is also turned off. In addition, the estimated time to fully recover was 3 days, which shocked Satoru a lot because he thought it was just because he gave out several names to those goblins and wolves. He could not even imagine what he would need so much magical power to it all. Then he understood why the elder came up and told him that it was not worth giving so many names at once. And where was the demon's common sense? In any case, a full recovery will take 3 days. Satoru's magic perception also doesn't work and he can't see or hear, but he knows he'll be taken care of. He felt like his mucous membrane was constantly rubbed. He dreamed that pretty nurses would take care of him. But then he realized that there could only be goblins there. Even though it looked surreal in his imagination, he was still very happy about it. 3 days later, after fully recovering his magic power and using magic perception, he saw some unfamiliar goblin who greeted him with a greeting and asked if he had recovered, but he did not know who she was. She went to call Mr. Ligurudo. After she called him, Mr. Ligurudo was happy that Satoru got better, but Satoru did not even recognize the old man he had seen before. It seems that everyone in this village somehow changed in appearance. Elder Ligurudo called Satoru to him, saying that they had finished preparing for the holiday. He was met on the street by Ranga, who said, "I'm so glad you recovered so quickly." My master, large. Then he wanted to make sure and called Ranga, who immediately responded to his name. He did not understand how this could be at all. Ranga became even more than his father. It turned out that evolution is such a simple thing. All you have to do is give them names. Demons are really incredible, and I'm just flawed. Satoru thought. A race of storm fanged wolves. Fanged wolves that have evolved since Rimuru Satoru gave them names. Subsequently, Ranga led his kindred and the race of fanged wolves became the race of storm fanged wolves. Then they all waited for the Satoru. One to celebrate the end of the battles and the general evolution. All the goblins and wolves looked at the Satoru. But he was very embarrassed because of this, so he told them to stop looking at him like that, but just start shouting, "Hurrah!" All of a sudden, an elder came up to him and asked, "Lord Rimuru, what's hurrah? What is this?" "Don't be silly to Satoru. How can something mundane in my past world work here?" But Satoru started explaining to them how to celebrate it. They don't seem to have any sense of tact and shame as well, and the cooking is lame. If you look closely, the food was either raw or fried. The huts were also dilapidated. The next day, the Satoru decided to have a meeting with all the goblins and wolves to decide everything these problems. Satoru asked the elder to gather everyone in the square. He went to prepare the gathering. Everyone woke up, but did not understand why Lord Rimuru was gathering them all in the early morning. But no one was worried, because it was Lord Rimuru. The morning was so beautiful. They thought that you would be planning some other holiday now, and Rondo was talking about yesterday's food, which was so beautiful, especially yesterday's beef and venison. They were so delicious. It took a full 5 minutes for everyone to calm down, and then it began. Satoru began to speak. "As you can see, we have become a big family. In order to avoid trouble, I will have to make some rules. First, no strike between each other. Second, do not dare to look down on other races, just because they have evolved. Third, don't attack people. That's it. I hope everyone will follow these 3 rules." After saying this, he began to wait for their reaction, when suddenly a question appeared from the crowd, wanting to ask a question. The question was why they couldn't attack people. Ranga and Veldora got angry, referring to the fact that someone was going to contradict Lord Rimuru's words, but Rimuru said that everything was fine and he was even happy about the question, which means that he listened carefully to him. The reason was simple. It was because Rimuru loves people. That's all. In addition, people do not live alone, therefore if they are attacked, they will take revenge, and if they attack in a large crowd, then we may not be able to cope with them. Thus, I forbid you to attack first. We won't be of any use, so don't provoke them." Of course, the real reason was that Satoru just loved people. With this, Satoru wanted to end the camp and said, "That's it. I hope everyone tries to show their best by following the rules." After creating the rules, there is a distribution of responsibilities. Security, hunting, and leadership of the village. He knew he could appoint to this position. So he said, "Ligerudo, I appoint you as the head of the goblin village. I hope you will lead the village wisely." Ligerudo was happy and knelt down and began to thank him with the words, "I obey and obey, sir. I will definitely fulfill this mission, no matter what." Stater needed only a few words to say. A ruler who rules without rule, how majestic it sounds. Satoru decided that one day he would go to the human cities, but it wouldn't work well if they couldn't do anything without his instructions, so he gave them all the authority and also told them to rebuild the houses. Ligerudo's leadership was not bad, but without knowledge of architecture. This is his limit. Satoru can only appreciate his work because he was a project manager in his past life, but he cannot properly channel the abilities of others. What to do? Since it comes to that, the Satoru decided to find experienced workers. There were some people who traded with us. Very smart. Maybe they will understand architecture as well, said the elder. Then Satoru became interested in this and asked who they traded with. He answered him that they traded with the known race. Speaking of dwarves, these are the dwarves who were very skilled at blacksmithing. Satoru knew them well, even though he had seen them in movies and games in his past life. The elder said, "If we follow the river north, it will take 2 months to reach the Dwarven kingdom, but given the speed of the attacking fanged wolves, the journey will probably take less time. Besides, if we follow the river, we won't get lost." Hearing all this, the Satoru said that he left the preparation for the path to Ligerudo. He replied that he would definitely have everything ready by noon. Thus, Satoru is heading towards the Noma Kingdom right now. The speed was about 80 kilometers per hour. In order not to fall off the wolf's back, Satoru used his ability, namely Sticky Thread. But on the descent, Satoru was terribly scared, but he felt better when he looked at the goblins and saw a very amazing action. Although the Satoru was worried about whether they were tired, he couldn't communicate normally at that speed. Then he remembered the learned skill, telepathy, that he received from the fanged wolf. He used this skill and asked the others if they were okay. They said not to worry about them. Maybe it's the consequences of evolution, but they really didn't get tired. Satoru asked, "You said your brother also got a name from someone, right? Did he evolve?" He got the answer yes, but it was also said that he didn't evolve to the same level as them. The older brother got his name from the officer of the army of demons, Mr. Jermust. He said he wanted to see him one day in the ranks of his subordinates. Satoru mused, giving a name becomes the cause of evolution. At the level of evolution depends on the strength of the one who gives the name. But it seems that I heard something that I can't ignore now. An army of demons. As expected, something like this exists here. Will they attack the countries of people to take over the world? If so, which side will I be on then? Thought the Satoru. Then they reached some unknown place and stopped there. They began to eat, and during the conversation, Satoru asked Gobuta if he had been in the kingdom of the dwarves before and whether he traded with them. He said that he was, and after that, Satoru still asked him what kind of place it was, and he told him that the official name of this place was Dvarvel. Dvarvel is a beautiful city built from a huge naturally formed cave. There are not only dwarves, there are many people and elves. Satoru really wanted to see it, but didn't know if it was okay for demons to just come and enter. But then he was told that he had nothing to worry about because Dwarvel is also a neutral city with a free market. Fighting in the kingdom is prohibited by royal decree. According to rumors, in this 1,000 years, the dwarf army led by the dwarf king has never lost, and that explains a lot. There are probably no such idiots in the world who would risk disfavoring the dwarf king. So the Satoru said they should just mind their own business, so the Satoru said they should rest soon. Satoru had a bad premonition out of nowhere. It was probably just the unreliability of the Gobuta that was to blame. It had already been 3 days since they had left the goblin village. A huge mountain range was visible on their horizon. At the foot of the mountain there are wide fields. Kingdom of the Dwarves, Dwargle. The path that took 2 months on foot we covered in just 3 days. Goblins in loincloths, like homeless people and even huge wolves, will attract too much attention. So the Satoru told them to wait there. It would be enough for a Satoru there and a Gobuta that you accompanied us. We'll be back, and by then Ligeru and the others will be camping in the woods. The inspection at the entrance to the city was very thorough. The line hardly moves. But we will have the right to move freely as soon as we go inside. Suddenly, 2 strangers appeared, who seemed to decide to show off and saying that they noticed the demons, they wanted to attack them. One of them said, "Since we are not in the city yet, is it okay if we get rid of them right here?" And the second added, "Hey, drop your things and get out, then I will spare your lives." Liguru was frightened, but it seemed that only for themselves, because Satoru was next to him. These Pulavians dug their own grave. But how did it all turn out that the Satoru and the Liguru ended up in prison? The captain of the guard of the dwarf kingdom, whose name was Kato, who caught them, said to Satoru before stuffing him into the barrel, "What now? Let's listen. What do you say in your defense?" He was placed in a barrel and thrown into prison, because with such a body without a barrel, he could easily escape from prison. Once in the cell, the Satoru began to explain the situation. He says, "I am ashamed that misunderstood, so let me clarify. After all, I didn't do anything wrong. We were just queuing for the inspection. And then those guys came up to us who threatened us and told us to leave our things there and run away so that they would not touch us. They didn't know who they were dealing with, but they called me worthless. They said that I thought that because of my body they could not hurt me. They immediately decided to attack me with 2 blades and shouted to me that if I'm not really slime, then I have to show them my true form.